Millionaire's spoiled son grabs black cleaner's daughter by the throat, unknowing that she is a professional boxer. Tyler Richardson's hands closed around Jessica Santos' throat as if she were just another inconvenient obstacle in his path. The real estate mogul's son had completely lost his composure in the private parking lot of Richardson Tower, his eyes injected with rage as he pressed the 22-year-old against the cold concrete wall. "Your mother stained my $3,000 Italian shirt with that disgusting cleaning water," Tyler growled, his breath heavy with expensive whiskey mixed with cocaine. "Someone needs to teach you too about respect." Jessica maintained a disturbing calm for someone being strangled. Her dark eyes showed none of the panic Tyler expected to find, only a cold serenity that should have served as a warning. But men like Tyler Richardson never learned to read the signs of real danger. As hours earlier, Carmen Santos was finishing her nightly cleaning routine on the 47th floor of the corporate tower. At 48, she worked 6 nights a week to keep her daughter in college and pay the bills for a modest apartment in the suburbs. What she didn't know was that Tyler had arrived at the office drunk after a party on his yacht, looking for documents to cover up yet another financial scandal at his company. The encounter between the cleaning lady and the billionaire heir was accidental. Carmen was cleaning the hallway when Tyler staggered out of the elevator. In his altered state, he tripped over her bucket of water, soaking his shirt and arousing a disproportionate rage that only men accustomed to never facing consequences can feel. "Your daughter attends the same university I go to, doesn't she?" Tyler had asked with a cruel smile as Carmen apologized profusely. "Maybe it's time she learned that there are consequences when people like you don't know their place." Carmen tried to explain that it was an accident, that she would pay for the shirt to be cleaned, but Tyler had already decided to turn that moment into a show of power. He took her cell phone, found Jessica in her contacts, and sent a message pretending to be her mother. "I need urgent help in the parking lot. Come quickly." Now with Jessica against the wall, Tyler felt the toxic pleasure of someone who believes they have absolute control over the situation. "Your mother is going to watch you learn good manners," he murmured, squeezing harder. "Then I'll decide if she keeps her job, or if you two learn what happens when people like you bother people like me." What Tyler couldn't see was the small smile that began to form on Jessica's lips. Even with his hands around her neck, he also didn't notice how her muscles remained relaxed, how her breathing remained controlled, or how her feet maintained a solid base on the ground. Details that anyone familiar with martial arts would recognize instantly. Jessica Santos wasn't just another college student over the past 5 years. She had secretly built a career in professional boxing, fighting in underground gyms to pay for her education and help her mother. Her hands, which Tyler held with contempt, had knocked out opponents 30 lbs heavier. Her body, which he saw as fragile, had muscles forged in 8-hour daily training sessions and a stamina that few professional athletes possessed. But most importantly, something even her mother didn't know. Jessica Santos was just 3 weeks away from signing a $1 million contract with one of the country's largest female boxing promoters. At 22, she was about to become one of the highest-paid athletes in her category. While Tyler squeezed her neck, believing he had complete control of the situation, Jessica mentally calculated how many seconds it would take to completely reverse that power dynamic. Her eyes met her mother's, who watched in terror through the glass of the security door, and she made an almost imperceptible nod with her head. It would be in those next few seconds that Tyler Richardson would discover the difference between having money and having real power. And Jessica Santos would show that not everyone he despised was as helpless as he imagined. There in that cold parking lot, with the hands of a billionaire around her throat, she remained calm, knowing exactly how to turn that humiliation into the greatest lesson in humility Tyler would ever receive. If this story of injustice and revenge touched you, don't forget to subscribe to the channel to find out how a simple moment of arrogance turned into the most spectacular fall a spoiled playboy has ever experienced. Tyler Richardson intensified the pressure around Jessica's neck, his cruel smile widening as he watched Carmen Santos desperately banging on the glass of the security door. "Look, your little girl is watching you being taught about respect," he murmured, his voice laden with sadism. "How about begging together?" What Tyler didn't realize was that Jessica was studying every detail of his movements. The unstable position of his feet, the vulnerable angle of his right arm, the way his drunkenness compromised his balance. 5 years of professional boxing had taught her that the most dangerous opponents were those who completely underestimated her abilities. "My mother worked 60 hours a week to keep this job," Jessica said calmly, her voice clear despite the pressure on her neck. "She's never missed a day, never been late, never complained about unpaid overtime." The quiet response angered Tyler more than any screaming or pleading could have. "You don't get it, do you?" he growled, pushing her harder against the wall. I can do whatever I want with you, too. My father owns half the commercial buildings in the city. One word from me, and your mother will never find work anywhere again." Jessica allowed a small smile to touch her lips. "And you think that scares me?" The seemingly naive question momentarily destabilized Tyler. He expected tears, pleas, terror, the typical reactions of his previous victims. Instead, this young woman watched him with unsettling serenity. As if assessing a weak opponent before an easy fight, on the other side of the glass, Carmen had managed to activate the building's emergency alarm, but she knew it would take at least 5 minutes for security to arrive. 5 minutes her daughter didn't have. What she didn't know was that Jessica had meticulously planned for moments just like this. 3 weeks ago, Jessica had quietly signed a preliminary contract with Golden Glove Promotions, the largest women's boxing company in the United States. The amount, $2.3 million for 5 fights with performance bonuses that could double that amount. At 22, she was about to become one of the highest-paid athletes in her category. But not even her mother knew about it. Jessica had kept her boxing career a secret, fearing that Carmen would worry about the risks of the sport. For 5 years, she had trained in underground gyms, fought in unofficial events, and built a lethal reputation on the women's circuit, all while maintaining perfect grades at university. "You know what your problem is," Tyler continued, his warm, alcohol-laden breath against her face. "You people think you deserve respect. You think hard work means something. But the truth is, there are people like me who were born to rule, and people like you who were born to obey." Jessica closed her eyes for a moment, remembering her first professional fight. Her opponent, Iron Fist Rodriguez, had said something similar before the bout. "Girls like you shouldn't be in the ring. I'm going to send you back where you belong." Jessica had knocked Rodriguez out in the second round with an uppercut that broke 2 of the woman's teeth. "Tyler," Jessica said softly, using his first name for the first time, "can I ask you a question?" The unexpected familiarity caught him off guard. "What? Have you ever been beaten up in your life?" The question was so unexpected, so absurd coming from someone being strangled, that Tyler let out a genuine laugh. "Be beaten up. I have 24-hour security, girl. I have lawyers who cost more per hour than your mother makes in a month. No one has ever dared to even think about touching me." Jessica opened her eyes, and Tyler saw something there that made him hesitate, a spark of something that looked almost like pity. "That explains a lot," she murmured. Meanwhile, upstairs, security had detected the alarm, but the team was dealing with an incident in the north parking lot. A fight between 2 drunk executives that coincidentally had started exactly 10 minutes before Tyler's arrival. A perfectly timed distraction that no one would question until much later. Tyler increased the pressure once more. His patience finally exhausted. "Enough talk. Time for you to learn that there are consequences for disrespect." His free hand moved toward his belt, a clear thread of escalation that turned the situation from aggression to something much more sinister. It was at that moment that Jessica Santos stopped pretending to be a helpless victim. Her muscles, relaxed until then to conserve energy, tensed with the precision of a spring being compressed. Her feet adjusted almost imperceptibly on the floor, finding the perfect angle of support that any fighter would instantly recognize. "Tyler," she said, her voice now carrying a cold authority that hadn't been there before. "Last chance to stop this," he laughed, interpreting the warning as disguised desperation. "Or what? You're going to sue me. With what money? Who's going to be your lawyer? Some overworked public defender?" Jessica smiled, not a smile of fear or supplication, but the calculated smile of a predator who had decided to stop playing with her prey. "No," she replied calmly. "I'm going to teach you why you should never touch a cleaning lady's daughter without knowing who she really is." At that moment, Tyler Richardson had his first real realization that he had made a terrible mistake. The woman he was holding was no longer the frightened student he imagined he was dominating. She was something completely different, something his privilege and money had never prepared him to face. Each new humiliation Tyler poured on her only strengthened something inside Jessica that he couldn't see, a silent strength fueled by the very injustice he was trying to impose. What this privileged man didn't know was that each act of contempt was writing his own sentence of defeat, and that the young woman in his hands was about to become his worst nightmare. What Tyler Richardson didn't know was that while he reveled in his display of power, Jessica was mentally timing every second. 5 years of professional boxing had taught her that patience was the difference between knocking out an opponent and being knocked out by them. "You know what the difference is between us?" Tyler continued, his warm, alcohol-laden breath against her face. "I was raised to command, you were raised to serve, and the sooner you accept that, the less painful it will be for both of you." But Jessica was no longer listening to his threats. Her mind had drifted back to 3 weeks ago when she had quietly signed the most important papers of her life at the Golden Glove Promotions office. The $2.3 million contract was stored in her apartment, along with a fight schedule that would make her the highest-paid athlete in her weight class. What even her mother didn't know was that Jessica Santos wasn't just a hard-working college student. Over the past 5 years, she had secretly built a lethal reputation on the underground women's boxing circuit. Her ring name, Silent Storm, was whispered with respect in gyms across the country. 17 consecutive victories, 15 by knockout. As Tyler tightened his grip on her neck, Jessica remembered her last fight against Demolition Davis, a former world champion who had underestimated the young woman for the same reason Tyler was now. Deceptive appearance. Davis had woken up in the hospital 3 days later. "My mom's getting fired tomorrow," Tyler muttered, clearly pleased with himself. "And you're going to learn that there are consequences when people like you forget their place in the world." It was at that moment that Tyler's cell phone vibrated with a message. He pulled it out of his pocket with his free hand, keeping Jessica immobilized as he read the screen. His expression of cruel satisfaction quickly turned to confusion, then to something close to panic. The message was from an unknown number. "Mr. Richardson, we have the images you requested. Payment must be made by midnight, or the photos from last week's party on your yacht will be leaked to the press. Especially the ones with you and the married senator. $500,000. Jessica felt Tyler's muscles tense against her as he typed a frantic reply. What he didn't realize was that this message was no coincidence. It was part of a much larger plan that had been set in motion the moment he had humiliated Carmen Santos 3 hours earlier. Marcus Chun, Jessica's college classmate and son of one of the West Coast's top private investigators, had been watching the Richardson family for months. Not by accident, but for a very specific reason. Tyler had destroyed Marcus's younger sister's life the year before, drugging her at a party and filming what happened next. When she tried to report it, the Richardson family's lawyers made her the villain. Marcus had never forgotten. And when Jessica discreetly mentioned the problems her mother was facing at work, the two had begun to connect the dots about Tyler's pattern of behavior, financial problems. Jessica asked calmly, watching Tyler delete and rewrite his response several times. "Shut up," he growled. But his voice had lost some of its previous confidence. "That's none of your business." What Tyler didn't know was that this blackmail was just the first move in a much bigger game. Marcus had spent weeks infiltrating Tyler's social circles, collecting evidence of every crime, every abuse, every moment of cruelty that the young billionaire thought was protected by his money and family connections. There were photos of Tyler forcing drugs on girls at college parties, audio recordings of his conversations admitting to bribing teachers and public officials, bank records showing payments to cover up at least 3 cases of sexual assault. Everything was documented, organized, and ready to be sent simultaneously to the press, federal authorities, and social media. In a matter of hours, Jessica, her mother's voice, echoed through the glass of the security door. Carmen had finally managed to activate the building's emergency system. But security protocol meant it would take at least 15 minutes for someone to arrive. Tyler looked at Carmen through the glass, and his cruel smile returned. "Maybe I should show your mommy what happens when you don't respect me," he said, his free hand beginning to move toward his belt. It was at that exact moment that Jessica Santos completely stopped pretending to be a helpless victim. Her eyes, which until then had shown only calculated calm, now flashed with something that made Tyler hesitate for the first time since he had laid his hands on her. "Tyler," her voice now carried a cold authority that hadn't been there before. "You have 10 seconds to take your hands off me and back away." He laughed, but the sound came out forced. "Nervous or what? Are you going to scream? Are you going to cry to your mommy?" "No," Jessica replied with the serenity of someone who had made an irreversible decision. "I'm going to teach you the difference between messing with an ordinary college student and messing with a professional boxer who has never lost a fight." The revelation hit Tyler like a punch in the stomach. He looked more closely at her face for the first time, finally noticing details that his prejudice and arrogance had masked. The subtle muscle definition in her arms, the balanced posture, even though she was pressed against the wall, the controlled breathing of someone accustomed to high-pressure situations. "You're lying," he said, but his voice had lost all confidence. Jessica smiled, not a smile of fear or pleading, but the calculated smile of a predator who had decided to stop toying with her prey. "Marcus is right about you," she said calmly. "You really believe that money can protect you from everything?" The mention of Marcus made Tyler pale. "How do you know Marcus Chin?" "The same way he knows your sister Amy," Jessica replied, watching the color drain completely from Tyler's face. "The same way we know all the other girls you hurt and then silenced with your daddy's dirty money." At that moment, Tyler Richardson finally understood that he had made the biggest mistake of his privileged life. The woman he had chosen as his victim wasn't just a professional boxer. She was part of a network of people who had spent months gathering evidence of his crimes. His cell phone vibrated again. This time there were 3 messages simultaneously. One from the FBI informing him of a formal investigation into his activities. One from his own university informing him of his immediate expulsion after new evidence of misconduct. And one from TMZ's official Instagram account where a video of him forcing drugs on a girl had been posted exactly 5 minutes ago, and already had 500,000 views. How? Tyler stammered, his arrogance finally crumbling as he realized the magnitude of what was happening. 5 years of planning my boxing career taught me patience, Jessica replied calmly. 3 months of knowing Marcus taught me that the best revenge isn't beating you until you pass out, though I could do that in a matter of seconds. The best revenge is watching as your own behavior destroys everything you think you have. She paused, watching Tyler read message after message arriving on his phone. Friends distancing themselves, contracts being canceled, his own family beginning to cut ties to protect their reputation. The difference between us, Jessica continued, echoing the words he had used against her minutes earlier, is that I was raised to fight for justice. You were raised to hide behind Daddy's money. And today, finally, we'll find out what happens when money can no longer protect you from the consequences of your actions. Tyler released her neck as if it had been burned, his mind finally processing that the young woman before him was not a victim. She was the architect of his complete destruction, and she had planned every detail with the precision of a world champion preparing the perfect knockout. Tyler Richardson completely released Jessica's neck, recoiling as if he had been electrocuted. His hands trembled as his cell phone continued to vibrate with a barrage of notifications, announcing the collapse of his privileged life in real time. "This is impossible," he stammered, scrolling through the messages that were piling up. His Instagram account had been suspended after dozens of compromising videos were posted simultaneously. The university board had voted for his immediate expulsion, and worse still, the FBI had issued an official statement about an ongoing investigation involving drug trafficking on the Richardson family's properties. Jessica calmly adjusted her blouse, watching Tyler crumble before her eyes. "Marcus is very meticulous," she said with the serenity of someone who had orchestrated every detail. "He spent months infiltrating your social circles, every party, every crime. Every moment of cruelty you thought was protected by dirty money, all documented in high definition." Tyler's cell phone rang. It was his father, Tyler. "Where the hell are you? The FBI is here with search warrants. They have recordings of you admitting to bribery and trafficking. You've destroyed our family." The call ended abruptly. Tyler tried to call back but found he had been blocked. His own family was cutting ties to save what remained of the Richardson empire. 5 years of building my boxing career taught me a valuable lesson," Jessica continued, her calm voice contrasting with Tyler's growing panic. "Patience is the difference between knocking out an opponent and being knocked out by them. You've been my easiest opponent so far." Carmen Santos finally managed to enter the parking lot, accompanied by 2 building security guards. She rushed toward her daughter, but stopped abruptly when she saw Tyler cowering against the wall. "Clearly in a state of mental collapse, Mom." Jessica smiled, hugging Carmen. "I'm sorry I kept my career a secret. But I needed to protect you from unnecessary worry." "Career?" Carmen asked, confused. Jessica pulled a folded document from her pocket. "Contract with Golden Glove Promotions. $2.3 million for 5 fights. I signed it 3 weeks ago. You'll never have to work as a cleaning lady again if you don't want to." The document fluttered in Carmen's hands as she processed the information. Her daughter wasn't just a college student. She was a professional athlete about to become one of the highest-paid boxers in the country. Tyler watched the scene with growing desperation. "You can't do this to me," he muttered, his voice breaking. "I'm Tyler Richardson." "My father owns half this city owned," Jessica corrected softly. "I just got a message from Marcus saying that Richardson holding stock has plummeted 78% in the last hour. Investors are fleeing like rats from a sinking ship." She showed him her phone screen where news of Operation Playboy dominated the headlines. The FBI had revealed a 2-year investigation into money laundering, bribery, and drug trafficking schemes involving the Richardson family. "How did you get all this?" Tyler asked, his arrogance finally replaced by genuine fear. "Amy Chin wasn't your only victim," Jessica replied, referring to Marcus's sister. "She was just the last one. Marcus spent years collecting statements from all the girls you hurt and silenced with money. 15 women, Tyler, 15 lives destroyed by your cowardice." His cell phone rang again. This time it was his lawyer. "Tyler, don't talk to anyone, don't sign anything. I'm trying to negotiate with the district attorney's office, but they have enough evidence to convict you for decades." Jessica watched Tyler hang up the call with trembling hands. "Do you know what the difference is between us?" she said, echoing the cruel words he had used against her. You were raised to believe that money can buy impunity. I was raised to fight for justice, and today we discovered that justice, when well planned, is much more powerful than any fortune. Security guards approached Tyler, who was now crying openly, not out of remorse, but out of self-pity for the loss of his privileges. Sir, you need to come with us, one of them said. The police want to talk to you about tonight's incidents. This can't be happening, Tyler repeated like a mantra as he was escorted away. I'm Tyler Richardson. I'm Tyler Richardson. Jessica and Carmen were left alone in the parking lot, hugging each other silently for a few moments. Finally, Carmen spoke. Did you plan all this? Not exactly, Jessica admitted. But when Marcus told me about Tyler's pattern of behavior, we decided that if he tried to hurt me, we'd be ready. The humiliation you suffered today was just the catalyst we needed to set the plan in motion. A CNN van pulled into the parking lot, followed by reporters from other outlets. The story of Tyler Richardson, the fallen billionaire heir, was spreading across social media faster than any PR team could control. What now? Carmen asked, still processing that her daughter had just destroyed one of the most powerful families in the city, using only intelligence and strategic patience. Jessica smiled. Not the calculated smile she had used with Tyler, but a genuine smile of a proud daughter. Now we start our new life. You'll never have to clean the offices of men like him again unless you choose to. As television cameras captured Tyler being led away by police, his sobs audible even from a distance, Jessica Santos held her mother's hand and watched the end of an era of impunity. The young woman, who had pretended to be a helpless victim, had revealed herself to be the architect of the most spectacular downfall the city's elite had ever witnessed. And what was most impressive was that she had achieved this without throwing a single punch, using only the most powerful weapon anyone can possess. The truth strategically revealed at just the right moment 6 months later. Jessica Santos stepped into the ring at Madison Square Garden, under the bright lights and cheers of 15,000 spectators. Her debut as Silent Storm had become one of the most anticipated in women's boxing worldwide, and her initial $2.3 million contract had already turned into an $8 million deal after her 3 consecutive knockout victories. Carmen Santos watched from the front row, wearing an elegant navy blue blazer, a far cry from the cleaning uniform she had worn for so many years. She had decided to open a small cleaning consulting company, employing other women who, like her, deserved dignity and respect at work. Mom will never have to bow down to men like Tyler Richardson again, Jessica thought as she adjusted her gloves. Preparing to defend her title for the first time, across town, Tyler Richardson was serving his 12-year sentence in state prison. He shared his cell with 3 other inmates who were not at all impressed by his former fortune. His father had gone completely bankrupt, trying to pay the compensation to the 15 victims who came forward after his crimes were made public. The Richardson family businesses were sold at a judicial auction. The family mansion became a community center for at-risk youth, and Tyler, who once thought he could buy impunity with dirty money, discovered that prison was the only place where his arrogance was worthless. Marcus Chun, now a graduate in investigative journalism, had turned the Richardson case into his master's thesis. His work on the fall of the untouchables, how technology democratized justice, won national awards and inspired other victims of abuse of power to organize and expose their aggressors. Jessica won her fight that night with a knockout in the 4th round, maintaining her undefeated reign. During the post-fight interview, when asked about her inspiration, she looked directly into the cameras. Every punch I throw is for all the women who have been silenced, humiliated, or underestimated. The best revenge is not to destroy those who hurt you. It's to build something so great that they become irrelevant. Tyler had tried to break the spirit of a young woman he considered inferior. Instead, he had created a symbol of resistance that would inspire generations. Jessica Santos proved that no matter how powerful your opponent is, when you fight for justice with patience and strategy, even giants fall. The difference between them was simple. Tyler was born believing that the world owed him something. Jessica grew up knowing that she had to earn her place with her own hands. And in the end, it was those hands that rewrote the fate of both of them. If this story of overcoming adversity and justice has touched you, subscribe to the channel for more stories.